Next to me here we have a 2006 Honda Odyssey that we picked up for a really good price recently, but that's because it's got a few issues. So let's dive into it and see if we can get them fixed. So I made this handy dandy list of issues. First off, it's got a little bit of a grinding noise on the top of the engine. I was most concerned about this, but I've looked at it a little further and I think it's probably just a power steering fluid pump. I was afraid it may have been something in my top end. Secondly, it's got an electrical issue, so the battery will get drained down fairly quickly. I just purchased a new battery so we can try to do some troubleshooting on that. Thirdly, the air conditioning is a little bit hit and miss. Originally there was some thought this may have been tied into the grinding noise, but I'm pretty sure that noise is not coming from the air conditioner or compressor. So we'll have to see what that is. Thankfully, of the three systems kind of in there, you have your passenger side, driver side, and rear. The passenger side still works a little bit. The rear is maybe a little better, well, better than the driver's side, but worse than the passenger side. The driver's side is worst of all. So it may just be blend doors or charging up the AC or a combination. I don't know yet. Fourthly, we've got a power door issue, which is not uncommon on the 2006 Honda Odysseys. Well, I say that. It's not uncommon on the Honda Odysseys. The right side door is broken. It has fallen off the track before. The previous owners did not use it. The driver's side door still works. We may have to replace some parts on the passenger side door, and there is a possibility that the power door is tied into the electrical drain. This van has 186,000 miles. The timing belt was last changed around 110, I think. So it's getting close to a timing belt change. It's not critical yet, but it wouldn't be a bad idea. So we may try to do that. Then last of all, more just general cleaning, exterior tidy up. The front bumper's got some holes in it. I don't know if we can fix those, but they tend to get a little floppy on these Odysseys, so I may try to fix that up. This is an EXL version, so that means that it has leather interior, it has heated front seats, it has a sunroof on top, and it has the VCM, which is something Honda had to increase fuel economy, and it has some reliability issues, so we may put a muzzler on that, but I don't know if that's a critical issue at this point. Basically, it shut off 3 of the cylinders to get better fuel economy, you use less gas, and it can cause issues running those 3 cylinders without actually using them. It can cause oil buildup and things like that, oil consumption. Probably not critical for us right now, but something I may want to address for the long-term reliability of the vehicle, because I really think this van should be able to hit 300,000 miles. All right, so first issue is power steering noise. Let's go ahead and pop the hood. I think the power steering fluid is low, so let's try to fix that. I picked up a couple of bottles of genuine Honda power steering fluid at the dealership. It's like $11 a bottle, 12 ounces each. Not very big bottles. So you can see the fluid level looks like it's down here, which is below the lower mark. Go ahead and pop the lid here to confirm. Yeah, it's low. I'm going to try to suck some of the fluid out of there so that there's more fresh fluid in there. Turkey baster is the best way to do this. I'm going to try to use my piston pump here, or whatever you call it. We got out just a little bit. It's also a balance because I only have 2 bottles, so I didn't want to take out too much. Now I'm going to come clean here. I don't think this is going to fix the issue. It may help a little bit, but I think the power steering fluid pump is probably going to need to be replaced. So I already tested this out the other day and videoed the noises it was making. So we can go back and show you real quick. It was kind of a whiny, rumbly noise on top. I'm thankful that it's most likely the power steering fluid pump, because that's much easier to fix than a lot of things. And I've done that before on my dad's minivan. All right, fluid is up to the upper level. Let's fire it up and cycle the power steering some. I'd show you the level, but it's clear and you can't see it. I'll probably need to put more into it. That is definitely quieter than it has been. So I'm going to go cycle the steering wheel from side to side a few times, see if the fluid level drops, and then maybe come out here and add some. So that sounded much quieter to me. That made a huge difference. Let's double check the fluid level here now. All right, so the fluid is now in the correct fill zone. It's still closer to the low level than the upper, but I've used exactly one bottle. Well, I am very happy about that. That power steering fluid pump may still need to be replaced down the road, but it's not an immediate concern right now. I may go ahead and do a complete flush, and I'll inspect it for leaks. It looks a little oily back in there, so that might be why we're a little bit low. But the engine's not about to blow up. We don't have something that's doing like permanent damage to something expensive. Power steering fluid pumps are like $100. But when I bought this power steering fluid at the dealership, I asked them for the price of a pump there, just in case. $995 for a power steering fluid pump. And I knew on Rock Auto you could get them for around $100. That's crazy. But the guy said, well, that's because this is a brand new pump. It's not rebuilt. But 10 times the price? I don't know. That's kind of absurd, maybe? All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and pull the van up into the carport, and then we can start doing some further electrical diagnoses. This is the battery out of my dad's Odyssey that I borrowed so that I could get this one home. So I'll need to get the new battery that I purchased installed and get this one back over to my dad. It is nice that I've worked on this type of van before because my dad has a 2006 Honda Odyssey as well. Main difference is his is an EX, this is an EXL. But he's already got, I think, like 260 something thousand miles on it. So I fully expect this one with good care and maintenance to be able to be pretty reliable up to around 300,000 miles. So why a minivan? Yes, it's a minivan because our family is growing and it just makes sense. The 2007 Corolla is getting a little crowded, and while we weren't looking to immediately get a larger vehicle, it was something that we were thinking about, and this van just came up at the right price, and I know the previous owner, so we figured we'd go ahead and buy it. Also, even though I'd really like an SUV, minivans have a lot of bonuses going for them. The amount of space inside them and the fuel economy you get, the visibility, they're just great for hauling people around. This just seemed like the right deal at the right time. All right, so we've taken care of the first item on here for now, the grinding noise. It's power steering. We're gonna move on to the next item, which is the electrical drain. I'm happy that the first item turned out to not be major. Okay, so new battery is in. We've got 13 volts. We should be good in that regard. I just used a Walmart EverStart Max, which is actually the same battery that my dad had in his van. This is just a newer generation. It just seemed like a really good value for the price. I guess that's what value means. But they just seem like a really good value, especially like compared to the AutoZone battery. This one I think was like 140, like 150 out the door with tax, and AutoZone is like a little over 200 for the comparable 3-year warranty one. Okay, so now we need to try to find the parasitic electrical drain. In order to do that, we essentially need to take our power leads and we'll disconnect the negative here, which I didn't tighten on. And we have one lead here and one lead on the battery. And we set this to, I can't remember what you set it to. I think it's like the milliamps. Here, I'm explaining how to do something that I haven't really done. I haven't done a lot of this, but essentially, what you're checking for is you're checking for any current flowing when everything is off. So, and you would find that because it should flow to your ground, from your chassis ground, from the vehicle to the battery ground. So that's what we're checking here by connecting the multimeter between these 2 points. And then from that point, you would go to your fuse block and you would start pulling out fuses and see if pulling a certain fuse will shut the draw down to 0. Then you know that that circuit is the one that had the draw on it, or the drain, whatever you call it. And then you can investigate that circuit further. So now I'm going to hold my leads to both sides here and we'll see if we get any readings on there. So we're getting nothing right now. So that's a good sign. If I'm looking at this right, it looks like we don't really have a parasitic loss. So I don't know if the previous owner was dealing with a bad battery or maybe an alternator that wasn't charging correctly. I'm not 100% sure. So anyway, I think that item is off the list for right now. We do have a fresh brand new battery, so that's good. I'll probably need to circle back and keep an eye on this and just make sure that I don't find myself in a precarious situation with a rundown battery. That leaves us with the air conditioning and power doors besides general maintenance. I'm going to go ahead and check some fluids real quick. I'm going to check the radiator fluid, the engine oil, and I'm not sure about the transmission one, but I may check that if I can. Brake fluid. We'll just check all those fluids and see where they're at real quick, and then I think we'll dive into the air conditioning. Alright, so first things first, engine oil. And we are on a little bit of a slope here, and I don't know if this dipstick is centered. So we are right about at the low mark on there as near as I can tell. So it'd be good to get the oil topped off and changed. Not absolutely critical right this second. Let's go ahead and pop the radiator fluid. See what this looks like. Alright, I don't see any fluid in there. So we'll need to add some Honda radiator fluid to our list. And check the overflow. Well, the overflow is not dry, so that's a good sign. Interestingly, it's just above the minimum line, so we don't seem to be entirely out. That's good. You can kind of see, if I jostle it a little bit, you can see that line. Yep, just above the min. So we need to pick up some radiator fluid. I think we're okay though, since there is some in the overflow. Let's check transmission fluid. I believe the transmission fluid is back here. I think that's it. There is fluid in there. Don't know if this is supposed to be checked running or not. That could probably stand to be changed. It looks dry now. Maybe it is though. Huh. I'm not an expert on automatic transmissions, but it seems like you should at least get something on the stick. The owner's manual may shed some light on that. I think it could be a situation where their vehicle is supposed to be running when you check that. Okay, so that leaves us with needing to check the brake fluid and the air filter. Oh, windshield washer fluid, but we're not really that concerned about that. This is the brake fluid back here. Okay, that one's really hard to see, but we're above the minimum line, but below the maximum line for sure. So we probably should top that off as well. So right there, you got your max line on the side. I can't really see any fluid, maybe a little shading on the bottom, but I don't see a min line. But if you come around here and look at it from this side, that's your min line down there. That seam, that's kind of your min line. And as you can tell, there is some fluid in there right above the min line, I think. It's just kind of hard to see, but I think we're okay on that one as well. Air filter's got 4 Phillips sockets at each on it. 1 at each corner. We're gonna need to use a socket. Okay. Thankfully, it looks like these are captured bolts, so I don't have to worry about losing them. That is a plus, especially this back side here. Yeah, it's dirty. Not the most terrible thing, but that could definitely stand to be replaced. Backside's even starting to look a little dirty. Thankfully, the box itself is clean. Mostly clean. So at least in my experience with my dad's Odyssey, these intake tubes here can start cracking or breaking as they get older. This one looked to be in pretty good condition, but I just noticed there is a break in it that I hadn't seen earlier. I don't know if I just did that when I removed the air filter, but I'll show you here on the back side. So this part here looks pretty good, but I just noticed back here we are cracked out. That part right there. It'll be good to get replaced, but it's not super critical. I don't really think any air is going to be leaking in right there, but if it is, it's in a minuscule amount. Okay, to check and see if I was testing adequately for drains, I went ahead and turned on a light inside there. I turned on, the battery's disconnected, but I turned on the light. Now I should see a drain, so we'll see if that actually happens here. I'm hoping this shows something now, because that'll tell me I'm testing correctly. It's not showing anything. So after creating a known load and not finding anything on here, I decided to start looking into my multimeter more. Popped off the back cover, well, popped off this cover, then took off the other little plastic cover right here. So you can get to the fuses. Meter says 0, I'm sorry, it says 1, which is infinite resistance. When I put the leads together like so, we get very little resistance, almost nothing. When I put them together in my fingers, I'm not super conductive. I guess my skin's dry. But what I can do is now use my fingers to help hold these leads to the ends of the fuse, which I pulled out of the back. I pulled out one of these fuses, checked it first, like so. It is showing infinite resistance on this fuse. And looking at that fuse, I can't see any fusible link still there. Not focusing. I think that fuse is bad. This one looks kind of the same way. I think I, in my ignorance, now or some point in the past, have blown the fuses on this multimeter, which I just never really realized till now, because honestly I only ever use this thing for checking voltage on something and checking continuity. Yeah. So the meter functions with those fuses blown for the things that I normally use it, so I would have no idea. It just seemed kind of suspicious. So now I know a little more about it, but I also need to get some fuses. Then we can find out about the draw. Alright, so here are replacement fuses. Way more than I need. And do not drop these everywhere. Alright, so we're going to do pretty much the same thing we did before. I'll turn the meter on. I'm going to try it on the 10 amp section here first. And see if I get a reading of any sort. I'm still getting absolutely nothing. Oh, I forgot that when I'm doing the 10 amp, I have a separate section on here. So I believe I just swapped this lead around over to here. So now it definitely should turn on since I have the key in the on position. Okay, yep. I'm going to go turn the key back off because we want it to be in a no drain situation. What should be no drain situation. Alright, key is off, and we are still getting a drain. Okay, so the next course of action is going to be to pop the lid on the fuse block and start pulling out fuses and checking for amperage there. So here's the fuse block. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to start working my way through here, pulling out fuses and checking with my meter leads across there to see if I'm getting a drain, if I'm getting any current going across it, because nothing should have any current right now. Another way to check this is now to check on my battery cable and see if there's no current across there. Maybe this is how I was supposed to be checking all along. Yeah. Alright, so I spent a great deal of time trying to find the electrical drain on here. And I'm starting to wonder if it really has one. So here's essentially what I found out. I narrowed it down to 3 circuits to fuses 5, 6, and 7 in here, which are these ones right here. So we've got radio, interior light, and backup, which are all fed from the 40 amp fuse in here, which is where in the main fuse panel, which is where I first found the drains. Anyway, I'm going through there, I'm checking, I'm finding that each one of those 3 seems to have a little bit of drain. I'm noticing it fluctuates around a little bit. I can't figure out exactly what's going on. Sometimes the drain drops down to 0 as I'm investigating it. And here's what I realized. My interior lights, I actually had a light on. Why would I do that? Oh, I didn't think I had one on, but apparently I had one on. So it was drawing 0.37 amps. That accounted for fuse 6, the interior lights. I know my radio seems like it's having some issues and doesn't work quite right. And then the other fuse, backup, that could be a number of different things. But I realized that it went down to 0 amps after a little bit of time on each of those. I turned that one light off that was drawing 0.37 amps. So the rest of the drain, if I am monitoring it, it will drop down to 0 in maybe 30 seconds. Probably actually less than that, I would say. So that leads me to wondering if I really even have a drain at all. And if I just wasn't checking correctly, like maybe I should have waited longer to see if the amperage dropped down. But I thought, well, you know, having something in the circuit, I'd read this somewhere maybe, something in the circuit being your meter can make it not behave the same way. But I started thinking about it, and this logic may not be correct, but I was like, well, if it drops down to 0 with my meter on there, wouldn't it drop down to 0 connected directly to the battery? Because my meter is essentially attaching my battery to ground and completing the circuit. If it does that with my meter, it should do that with the battery. If it does that with the battery, why would it be a problem if it drops down to 0 essentially? I think we have 0.01 amp that is still a draw on there, which is probably, I should double check, but I think that's an acceptable drain of 0.01 amp. All that to say, I think I spent a whole bunch of time trying to track something down, which was partially my mistake having a light on that I didn't realize, and also an elusive drain that may not actually be a drain. So we may be back to square 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever square that was earlier, when we had a broken meter and thought that there was no drain. It could just be that the battery was drained by a light left on at some point in the past, and it damaged the battery, and then the battery was just not charging up well after that point. So maybe there is no permanent issue. So I think we're going to put the electrical testing behind us for now, and we're going to test the theory that there is no drain. We'll just see if we have issues with the van. That means it's time to move forward to the next thing on our list. So grinding issue taken care of, electrical drain we've taken care of. Now it's time for the air conditioning. This one's gonna be fun, maybe. Looking into it, it sounds like it's probably just low on Freon. So that's the first thing we're gonna do is check the Freon. So here is my handy dandy air conditioning, I don't know what you call this. It's a manifold gauge set, something like that. So it has a high pressure gauge and a low pressure gauge. Most times if you just buy one of the cheapo ones at Walmart or wherever with a can of R134A or refrigerant, most often you can get them with like one gauge, which will just be the low pressure side. This is better to have both to monitor it more. However, the last time I used my high pressure side, I ended up having to replace the high pressure port. And then someone else used it also, and I think they ended up having a leak on their high pressure port as well. So I'm a little leery of checking the high pressure port, and I don't know if it's because this connector here is damaged or something like that, or if it's just the fact that if those high pressure ports are opened so infrequently, when you open them after years and years, they just don't seal back as well, or maybe something gets stuck in there and they're high pressure and they leak out. I don't know. I don't want to mess with that, so I'm just gonna try to do this using my low pressure gauge, and we'll just see how it goes. I'm gonna have to dust off the cobwebs in my brain and try to remember how on earth you charge an AC system, because it's been a minute. And by been a minute, that means it might have been about a decade now. So thankfully the new can of refrigerant has instructions on how to do this. So basically you start up the vehicle, you get the AC cranking full bore, and you connect to your low pressure side, and you fill through the low pressure side, which I knew you fill through the low pressure side, but it's my high pressure, this is my low pressure. They're both right back in here. This is the high pressure, this is the low pressure back behind. All right, I found a handy dandy chart here, and with the exterior temperature around 90 degrees, which it's 92 out here, that gives us a range of 45 to 55 psi for the low pressure side. I'll try to keep it clean, but I grabbed my wife's kitchen thermometer. We'll see if we can check what the AC is currently doing in the car. All right. Let's see. That one's definitely cooling a little better. So 78 there. We're getting not much of anything here. Alright, so we are really only getting a good reading, decent, well, not really good, on the passenger side air conditioning. That one is getting us 78, 79, it gets down to 79, but the driver's side and rear are not doing very good. So, alright, let's go try to charge it up. Alright, we came up to 10 psi. 10 psi on here. So we're up to 10, but we really need to be like, what was it, 45? Yeah, 45 to 55. I'm going to start opening up the can here, pressurizing the manifold. Now I'm going to open this to allow pressure to start going into the system. Around 15 now. The pressure goes up so rapidly when I put it in, but I don't want to overfill it. But it's not a lot of volume going in, so the pressure is high when I'm attached to the can. When I shut it back off, it drops back down. I can see where I'm at. And right now I'm at about 15, so I definitely need to get quite a bit more in there. Shut it and see where I'm at. Okay, we're around 20, so we're getting closer. All right, we are almost to 30. I think this can's almost empty. We want to be 45 to 55. So I think we need another can, but I don't have another can. So let's go ahead and check and see what things are looking like inside. I'm gonna go ahead and close this port. All right, what are your thoughts on what being at 30 pounds will do for our temperature in here? It definitely feels nicer in here now. But driver's side was previously reading in the 90s, right around 100. So we're getting 85 before. It's a little bit better. Now let's see what the passenger side is doing. And let's check our rear AC. It's been a major improvement on the rear AC. So we still have a ways to go, but that's definitely an improvement from where we were. Now I do realize that the van's been running on recirc now for, 10, 15 minutes, and that could also cool down the air a little bit, but it's definitely reading a little better than it was. I think we need another can though. All right, I'm gonna take the system off here because I don't want it to be leaking. I hear something. Oh no, it's leaking. Schrader's leaking. It's always a risk when you open a system that hasn't been open in a long time. The valves can start leaking on you. There's not much I can do except just keep trying to pop that Schrader to get it to seal up. So that means we're going to be leaking all the Freon out again, which isn't great. Interestingly, I took this cap off and I see it bubbling in the high pressure side as well. See if you can see any. Looks like I'm in for a system evac and swap out both of my high and low pressure ports, and then probably put it all back together. And it's just somewhat the nature of the beast. As they get older, they're more likely to leak. All right, it is timing belt day on the 2006 Honda Odyssey. So I've done a timing belt tensioner before, working on my dad's minivan, but this is going to be a little more involved because we're actually changing out the timing belt and the water pump. I'm no expert. We'll see how it goes. You guys can follow along for a little bit. I don't know how much in depth we'll do filming on this because this isn't a how-to. This is more about the story of getting a cheap van, getting it up and running, and getting it back into good, usable condition. So anyway, that's what I'm going to be doing. You'll see what you see and you won't see what you won't see. I did purchase the kit from Rock Auto. It's a complete timing belt kit, so that's really convenient. It has a timing belt. There's the water pump. And it has the new timing belt. It has a new timing belt tensioner and idler pulleys. And we've got some other stuff that I purchased at the same time. A O-ring for my power steering because I know my power steering was leaking some. And we got a new intake hose because we discovered there was a crack on the intake hose. And I think I got one more thing. I can't remember what it was. Oh, I got a filter for the transmission fluid because I would like to change that as well. But all right, let's dive into it. Alright, quick update. I got the serpentine belt off, serpentine belt tensioner. Now I'm going to drain the coolant. I've marked my harmonic balancer as was recommended so that I can line it up again, same way. We need to get this thing removed pretty soon. So I do have the tool for it, so this fits right in there. And then you can put your regular socket through there. But I'm very hopeful that my 1/2-inch impact can get it off. That's the gist of what's going on. I've never done this before. Well, I've done some of it, but not the whole thing. So back to it. All right, well, we made some good progress today. A little bit slow going, but not too bad. So we got everything off down to the timing belt. I'll show you the timing belt here. It actually doesn't look that bad. I just got everything lined up. So, we try to get these marks lined up over here. I don't know if you can see them. And then there's some over here as well that are hard to see. I don't know if you can see them. I can't remember the last time I actually stopped for a video, but my half-inch impact did a great job removing the harmonic balancer. I didn't have to use the fancy tool. Then, of course, down here on the crankshaft, this is where we spin it around to line it up. And hopefully we got it lined up pretty good there. We also cracked a bleeder valve open on the back here somewhere to drain some coolant out. So we've gotten quite a bit of coolant out. The spanner wrench I bought from Harbor Freight, I don't remember if I mentioned that. The guy on the video I watched had like some special pulley wrench. So this is a spanner wrench with like, extensions on there. This worked great for breaking free the pulley on the power steering fluid pump. And we're able to get that finagled out of the way up here. It's definitely oily and leaking. I'm questioning whether I'm just going to be replacing the O-rings on the hoses or if I need to replace more, like the actual pump or the back hose, because I know these can sometimes leak. When we're done, I'll need to suck the coolant out of the overflow, and then we're effectively giving this thing a pretty good coolant change. Voila, no belt, no idler pulleys. That's the water pump there that you see in the middle. Here is the old timing belt, and like I said, it really does not look bad. But you know what? For a timing belt, that's not a bad thing, because you really don't want them to get bad. On the one hand, you could say, well, you could have gone longer. But on the other hand, you just don't want to risk it. So, a new timing belt in there, we should be good for another, I think it's 105,000 miles, or 7 years. So, probably 7 years in my case. And also, we're not just changing out the belt, we're changing out the water pump and the 2 tensioner pulleys and the actual tensioner itself. So, it'll be good to get all that in there and taken care of. And of course, we're also changing the coolant out. So we're just kind of getting a clean slate, fresh start for the van. I was definitely a little nervous about whether my timing marks are lined up okay. I think they're fine. I kind of just have to move forward. I was real close for a little bit there to just leave it for next time I come work out here. But I was like, no, there's no reason that it should change while I'm gone. So let's go ahead and get it done. One last thing for next time. All right, here we are back at it a week later. I was working on it last Saturday. I'm working on it this Saturday. Today we need to pull the water pump off and drain out the rest of the fluid in there. Then put the new water pump on, and we're just basically just reassembling everything. So hopefully it goes fairly quickly. I'd love to get that all done, fresh coolant in the system, and then maybe change out my power steering O-rings and flush my power steering fluid as well. Maybe do an engine oil change, maybe change my intake hose since I've got that. Yeah, we'll see how far we get today. At the very least, I want this thing all the way back together and in a known running condition again. So that would mean timing belt back on there, all that reassembled, and fill up with coolant again. So this video isn't really a how-to video, but I will show you down in here. You can see here's my my camshaft pulleys up here. There's my water pump is right here. There's some bolts for the water pump down there. I think you can see on the bottom down there with the nut on it. That is my crankshaft. Here's the leaky power steering pump. I think the O-rings would be replacing right in here. I can't remember. There may be 2, 1 for each spot, and hopefully that would help a lot. It's hard to tell where the leak is coming from. There was definitely some rust in the coolant. So it was definitely good to get that changed out. The previous kit that was on here, it looks like it was most likely a Gates kit because it says Gates. However, I could not read any of the information on there, unfortunately. I almost put another Gates kit on here. Reading up on it, it seems like the Asian kits, Asian, I don't know. Asian kits are a little bit better. Gates is a belt manufacturer. Asian manufactures like the water pump and that kind of stuff, if I remember correctly, which people tend to think is a little bit more important than just the belt manufacturer, because if those things seize up or have issues, that can damage the timing belt. So Asian sources their timing belt from Mitsubishi. So it's a Mitsubishi timing belt that I'm going to be putting on there. Alright, so quick update. I got the water pump off, and I've been trying to clean up the surface on there, the surface on the engine block. And I think there's a little bit of pitting there, so I'm going to need to do what the guy in the video I'm watching suggested, which is use some gray Permatex on there. So ran to town, got some Permatex. Also tried to get a siphon pump to get the rest of the coolant out, as it really needs to be clean for the Permatex to work well. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to use brake cleaner, try to clean up the surface, use the gray Permatex to seal it, and then I guess just follow those recommendations for that. I think it's like I want a really, really small amount because I don't want it to squeeze out everywhere. It says continuous 1/16 to 1/4 inch. I may run on the small side of that because I've got a gasket, an O-ring kind of gasket on the water pump. That'll do most of the heavy lifting. I just want to help it out in those spots where there's some pitting, I guess you could say. It's basically these two dark spots here, one right here and one right here. Essentially, they are lower than the surface, so I'm trying to clean. They don't come off. I can kind of feel my finger goes down in there. Let dry for 1 hour, then tighten to torque specifications. So I'm gonna have to let it sit for an hour. So things are not gonna get done today, at least not in the time frame I was hoping for. So here is the old water pump, and interestingly, it looks like there was a fly in here. And I noticed another bug somewhere when I was sucking out coolant. So here's the new water pump. It looks like the same thing, and yeah, should work out well. Here's the gaskety O-ring I was talking about. So I'll just run a little bit of Permatex around there. The coolant I got out last looks pretty dark. Hopefully that's not an issue, but I do wonder. I'm pretty sure this is probably not the right coolant that was in here. Maybe I shouldn't say I'm pretty sure. I'm just wondering if it was not Honda brand coolant in there. I'm sure there's other brands that may work fine. I think part of it is I read that incorrect coolant can cause pitting on the block. The guy who I was watching specifically mentioned that, kind of as the context for using the Permatex to seal it if that surface is not clean. So that could be the case. I don't know if that was the case, and if that did happen, I have no idea how long ago that happened. I'm going to use the Permatex, and I'm going to use genuine Honda coolant, and hopefully we don't have any issues. I don't think we will. I forgot to mention the sticker I got on my shirt. We took a break today and went to a Touch a Truck event, and that's part of the reason I'm a little farther behind than I planned on being, but it's also a very good reason. All right, back to the time lapse, but you know what I'm doing now. All right, so it is now my third Saturday working on this timing belt job. I figure I've got maybe 8 hours into it altogether, like 5 hours the first time, 3 hours the second time, something like that. When I left last time, it was kind of dark, so I wasn't filming as much, but I got the tensioners on there, reinstalled. So the water pump's been reinstalled, the tensioners have been reinstalled. I say that. The idler pulley and the tensioner pulley. I don't have the tensioner itself, that cylinder, bolted down all the way yet. But then we're trying to get the belt routed, and that was kind of a pain. So it's a little hard to get it tight on the tension side. By tension, I mean the belt needs to be tight there, and then the other side, it's going to be looser, and that's where the tensioner itself actually puts tension on the belt, if that makes sense. So you need it to be tight on that one side, and it's hard to get it on tight. Like, you put the belt on there, it's toothed, and you need to get it over one more tooth. But I think I was just successfully able to do that this morning, so let's take a look and see what it looks like in here. So there's the drive pulley. Well, I say this is the crankshaft pulley. And there you can see those ones with the blue on them, those are the tensioner. The one on the right hand side, that's just a straight up tensioner. The one on the left hand side, that is the one that has the tensioner cylinder that will push it, which you can kind of see all loose in there. So this on the right hand side is what needed to be tight when I installed it, because that slack would not be taken out, and if there was slack there, that would mean that the timing was off. So I think I just got that on, that pulley. Now I need to work and get it on this pulley over here, the back one, the back camshaft. So it's on the front camshaft, now I need to get on the back camshaft. We'll see how this goes. When I get everything on, I'll need to double check that I'm still on my timing marks and that the belt is tight on the, I guess you could call it the, I don't know, drive side, pull side, whatever. And make sure that the belt is tight on the correct side. Back to time lapse. Alright, well I think it is on now. I did have to take the tensioner cylinder. I had to take this thing back out because it was kind of just a little bit away in the way of the tensioner pulley being released all the way. And I needed that slack to get everything on. But I think everything's on now, so it feels tight on all of the places where it should be tight, which is everywhere except for the side where the tensioner pulley tensions it. And it looks like everything is still lined up. So I think we're good to start the reassembly. Alright, well, I got the tensioner back on, and interestingly, it is so tight that the tensioner can't go back any farther, really. So basically, there's a safety wire that's in the tensioner to help, that keeps it loaded, and that wire has no tension on. I can pull it in and pull it out and put it back in without any issue because the ram is stuck all the way back down in the cylinder. So I did what the guy in the video mentioned doing, which is rotate everything around twice, like 2 revolutions on the crankshaft, which is 1 revolution each for the cams. And I noticed that my tensioner is come out and I look like I'm off on my back pulley, so something was wrong. My belt was not fully on all the way somehow, somewhere. So that means since I'm off on the back camshaft now, yeah, there was a problem in there. The belt was probably not fully seated somewhere. It was, maybe it was on top of the notches on the back camshaft and I didn't realize it somehow. And then when I rotate around, it slid down in, and it slid down in on the wrong notch. So I'll show you what it looks like, and that's my plan, to somehow recompress the tensioner and get the pin back in there. I'm hoping I can just stick a socket on that pulley there. It's on a swivel, and then I can pull it down and that won't hurt the bolt there, hopefully. Pull that down, get the wire in there, then pull the belt back off the top back camshaft, rotate that pulley back to the right spot, then get the belt back on, then release the tensioner, then I'll probably crank it around again to make sure it works right. But here, let me show you real quick. I don't know if you can honestly see. It's kind of hard to get the camera down in here, but the back one here is no longer lined up. Notch right about here, and then there's my matching notch, and so it needs to be over right here, but it's back there. So I think we're off by a tooth. And then here's what I'm talking about on the tensioner. You can see it is sticking out right here now, so it is pushing out. So I can't put this pin back in until I get that little rod pulled back into the cylinder. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Probably time lapse this. I'm kind of learning as I go. I'm just trying to share the story. Alright, I think I got the timing belt on in the right position now. So to compress the tensioner, I basically just used the C-clamp here. Kind of had to finagle it to keep it in there. So yes, I did take it out. If I'd had a third hand, I think I could have compressed the tensioner installed and then put the pin in there, but it's okay, it worked out. I was able to get the belt on the back pulley here, which was an absolute pain to get it on that one. I kind of used a breaker bar to pull the pulley forward, try to get it on there and tighten it back up, trying to get it so it would be lined up with tension on it. But it's really hard to put the belt on really tight, so just kind of finagle it, and I think it worked. I rotated the engine around, or the crankshaft, twice again, which is 1 full revolution for the camshafts, and everything still seems to be lined up, so we should be good to move on with assembly. Alright, so I was trying to install the engine mount bracket that goes over the water pump, and I ran into an issue. So here's the bracket right here. It's got 3 bolts that hold it on, and this one here, unfortunately, well, started stripping out. I grabbed a piece of wire and ran into the hole to see if the hole is deeper than the bolt. It appears like it is. I was using this piece of wire here, and I think I put a little notch on the wire somewhere. So there's extra depth to the hole, so my plan is to go get a longer bolt and get a tap and die kit for metric bolts. Hopefully that works. I think on this one, out of all the bolts on this bracket, this would be the easiest one to fix like this, most likely, because we have space, more space for a longer bolt here because the bracket itself is not nearly as thick. We'll go to town, come back, and hopefully we'll get this fixed. Alright, I think this is now my 4th Saturday working on the timing belt change for this minivan, because we've run into a few difficulties and I haven't put a ton of time into it. What I ended up doing is I ended up purchasing some 100mm bolts. These are stainless. These are full thread stainless bolts. I haven't even opened them yet. Hopefully they are stainless. They came from China, and sometimes things from China are not exactly what you're hoping that they are. A 100mm bolt might be a little too long. I might need to trim it down. That can be hard with stainless. I kind of was thinking about 95. 95s are very rare bolts. I was able to find a few of them, but they cost a lot, and I really need as much thread engagement as I can get. So what I'm thinking is I may use some of these washers to back the bolt out a couple of millimeters so that it's effectively a little less than 100mm long. Now we get down to the fact about the threads that were stripped out. So we may need to tap threads further into the block to get the bolt in. But it occurred to me much later on that when they made this, they may have tapped the hole all the way down. So there may be threads all the way down. I also have to deal with the threads that are bad. And the first part, how do we get those out? Some of them, it's not a really super accessible area. I've got maybe this much clearance there. I need to get the threads cleaned out. I went ahead and bought a metric tap and die set from Harbor Freight because I had SAE but not a metric one. And there's also the possibility that the tap is not long enough to get all the way down in there, so that could be a potential issue. So we just got several things going on here, and hopefully we can get to the bottom of it today, but there is definitely that chance that we may make a little headway and hit another roadblock in this process. So we'll see how it goes. That's the explanation. Now we'll see what actually happens. Alright, well, I have again spent a large portion of the day trying to figure things out. I went to town, to Home Depot, several Home Depots trying to find another bolt. Let me explain what's going on. So I used my 100mm bolt and tried to put that in there as far as I can, and not that surprisingly, it doesn't go in all the way. I feel like I'm effectively able to insert about 91 to 92 millimeters. Even a 95mm bolt would still be too long. But what about the threads? What about the overall depth of the hole being about 100? Well, here's my tap for tapping the holes. So as you can see, we would not be making good threads all the way to the end of this, which means, well, it raises a question. Maybe, I don't know, maybe there are taps that will tap all the way to the end. I don't know, maybe there are some. I don't have one, and I don't know how much I want to go down that path of trying to get a tap like that. I basically just kept inserting this about as tight as I could, backing it off in, and it was getting tight. I don't know if I gained any thread engagement by putting this in about as tight as I could, backing out and putting it in. I thought I may have gained a little bit to get to that total of 91, 92 millimeters in. But here's the thing. When I torque it down, I want it to be torquing the bracket onto the water pump to hold that down. So I don't want to be bottoming out in my hole. If I've only got 91 or 92 millimeters available, I need a 90mm bolt, and those are more available than like a 95. Then I went to 2 Home Depots trying to find it. I found it, the second one. Here's my 90mm. I'm gonna see if I can use this one with some probably blue thread locker. And I think my plan is to not torque it to the full spec torque. I believe 33 foot-pounds is the spec torque. So I'm thinking about maybe trying to torque it to 22 foot-pounds, and if it torques to that, then just let it go. So yeah, we've got about 5 millimeters more engagement on this bolt, and I hope that's going to be enough. It's not a flange head. I don't think that's going to be a major issue. I could be messing things up, but I really think it's going to work just using the 90mm, and don't torque it quite as much, and use the thread locker on there so it doesn't back out. Let's get to it. Time lapse. Alright, so this is like my 4th weekend working on this car. This is actually a Monday. I took off the Monday. Saturday I was doing other things. And we've got it back together. I think the timing belt change thing is entirely back together, except for putting the plastic back in the fender and the wheel well, wheel on, and filling with coolant. So the guy in the video I watched did a quick test start at this point, just to make sure everything looked good. I'll do that as well. Yeah, I think everything is pretty much back together. I spun the engine over several times, and it seems like everything should be working well. Now, I do want to swap out this intake hose real quick because, let me show you. I noticed this splitting right in here on the intake hose. You see that shiny? That's the metal underneath right there. And also, I didn't even realize that until later on, but that's kind of cracked right there. Yeah. So that's not really good. That means unfiltered air can get in. So I already have a new one. These are pretty cheap. They're like $15 or something. I'm going to go ahead and throw that on real quick before I start up the car. Then we'll have our moment of truth. Then we can keep moving on with this project. I'm not really impressed with this new intake hose. It had some like rubber spots on the inside that I tried to trim off with a razor blade. And I don't know, just kind of weird. It has a, the hose clamp that was on here was not bent. These tabs were still straight out. Where'd that go? Yeah, so here's the hose clamp that was put on there. I don't know if you guys can see this, but the tabs have not been bent out. So it makes it a little harder to grab it. And the hose clamp is normally gonna look like this one here. And this one does not look like that. So I don't know what they were thinking. What's going on with this? This also looks slightly deformed in here. It shouldn't really be an issue, but I don't know if this thing is used or what. And we'll get it back together, but it's a little disappointing on this thing. All right, I finally got that air intake hose on there. That was a bear. Yeah, I started putting this in first and then couldn't get this end on, so I took it back out, then got that end on and put it back in. It was a pain. Yeah, that was a Gates brand hose, which should be a name brand hose, but this one just didn't seem that great. I probably would not recommend buying one of those based off my experience, but that's what it is. Anyway, now we are ready to do the trial test on the van before we fill with coolant. I guess that doesn't damage the water pump. It's not like other types of things. But we'll just start up real quick, make sure nothing bad happens, and then we will start filling with coolant, put the plastic back on for the fender liner, put the wheel back on, then we can move on to other stuff. Gosh, I hope everything's all right. It works! We'll turn it off now. Woohoo! Yes, we got that timing belt changed. Okay, now we'll move on with all the other stuff I talked about. All right, quick update on the van. I was filming a time lapse and this camera fell over. I thought it might have been damaged. It seems to be working fine, but I've been trying to get stuff done and not really filming everything. I don't know, this is our 5th or 6th Saturday working on this. So last Saturday I think we did not work on it, we had something else going on. But I completed the power steering fluid change as well as I could. Basically sucked all the old fluid out, cycled the steering back and forth several times, put more fluid in the reservoir, that way it pushes it back in there. Sucked that out as well. Then I swapped out the O-rings on the power steering, and let me tell you, having the right tool helps a lot. The low pressure inlet side, I couldn't get my full length wrench in there, so I purchased some stubby wrenches and they really helped there. I'd already kind of gotten it in, but I used the stubby wrenches to kind of double check. Having the right tool helps a lot. Oh, maybe I should show you those in a second. So yeah, these stubby wrenches helped a lot. I purchased them at Harbor Freight. So that brings us to today. We've got the power steering filled back up, cycled it. So the next issue I wanted to tackle is my ABS light and my VISC light, I think it is on. VISC, I believe, is like the traction control. Likely enough, it was like a wheel speed sensor or something like that. I didn't really know what all was going on, but I was looking under the van. Let me show you what I found here. I'm pretty sure this is the issue, probably for both. I don't think that's right. We've got a wire there that is pretty clearly broken. I don't know how we're gonna fix this yet. I don't know if we can unplug the wire up there, and then maybe there's a plug over here somewhere. Yeah, I'm gonna try to fix that today if I can. Don't really know how I'm gonna do it, and I'll probably show you what it looks like once it's done. But yeah, broken, severed, hanging wires. Likely culprit for my back left wheel speed sensor, whatever that is. So if we fix that, that should fix our ABS and fix our traction controls. We'll get back with you once we figure out what we're doing, and hopefully after we fix it. All right, got set up with the heat shrink style solder connections on there, and got some extra heat shrink over there. Hopefully I can slide down a couple pieces of it. Hopefully it works out, and we'll find out shortly. I hope it works. I think it might. Got all the heat shrink on there. So basically we have the little connectors that are heat shrink with the solder in them and seals. Then I put the larger heat shrink to cover them. Then I electrical taped it, did a double wrap, and then I slit an old fuel line and popped it over the top, and then zip tied everything up there. So yeah, I think that'll work. And here's the best part. The lights went out in the van. Now I was really concerned because before I did the fuel line and the zip ties and electrical tape, after basically I just did the heat shrink, the connectors and the heat shrink and all that stuff, and fired up the van, and it still had the lights on. The warning lights, which was pretty disheartening because I thought I may have messed something up when I was putting them on there, because the heat shrink was really tight and I was pulling it on there and I thought I felt or heard a crunch or a pop. I thought maybe I broke one of those connections. Maybe I did, I don't know, but that combined with the fact that the lights were still on was pretty disheartening. However, I was going to drive it to town and see if we could get the lights checked to confirm, you know, what was going on, and the lights went out. So I think it's something where maybe with the wheel speed sensor it has to be moving to start registering again to clear the light. So quick update on the van. I've been driving it a little bit. It's been working out pretty well, but I had a vibration, I guess around 65 miles an hour up to maybe 80-ish. I didn't want to go too fast to test it out, but it seems to be more like under acceleration, under load. If I let off, it doesn't vibrate as much. I'm trying to figure out what it could possibly be, and I think the best place to start is going to be getting like a new, well, not new, but getting the tires rebalanced. I learned something I didn't know, that there's a newer type of balancing machine called I think it's like a road force balancing machine, which will apply pressure against the tires and wheels as they're being balanced. That will, I guess it helps them simulate actually being used, and gives them a better ability to balance them. And I think it also helps with like out of roundness on them, which can also contribute obviously to bumping or vibrations, not just where the weight is, but the out of roundness. So I wanted to do that, because if it's not that, then it might be like a CV axle that's slightly out of balance, and it's easier to get the wheels and tires balanced again. So all that to say, I took it to Discount Tire to get it balanced, and I couldn't find my special lug nut lock key, which is annoying because I know I had it, because I had the front wheel off and I put it back on. I couldn't find it anywhere, so they weren't able to do that. So I looked everywhere I could think of to try to find that key everywhere reasonable, and it's not showing up. So I must have not put it back in the van. I don't know. And then it just walked away somewhere out here. And we got a bunch of leaves and whatnot going through here. And I tried to find it with a magnet, with going through the leaves. But at the end of the day, I was thinking about it. I don't even really want to have a locked lug nut, because it's only going to lead to issues like this. I really don't think anyone's going to steal the wheels off here. So I was looking around in the car and I found these. And this may tell a story. So in this bag there are 3 lug nuts. So my guess is that at some point a lug nut got lost and they just decided to replace it with a locking lug nut set, or a keyed lug nut set. So I still have 3 of these, I think original ones, and there had been a package in the van that the lock was in right here, and I failed to put that lock back in there. So I think someone purchased that after a lug nut was lost and just replaced them with locked ones, but now I'm stuck with locked wheels. So I've seen a video about someone getting these off. They hammered a socket on there, like a 12-point socket. I bought a sacrificial 12-point, I think they're 12-point socket set, because I thought I was going to need to grind one down to get to that engine mount bolt in there. And I was able to get it out with my 3/8 set instead of the 1/2 inch. So these are 1/2 inch sockets. So let's see if we can find one there that'll fit on here, and see if we can hammer it on there. And if so, maybe we'll get these things off of here for good. Although I'm still short a lug nut, so I need to go buy one. Either I spend a ton of time looking to find that to find that lock, or I just go a different route, which could be to buy a new key, like since I have the original package, I could probably get one that matches, so I could spend money that way, or I could just try to fix this issue once for all and stop having keyed lug nuts. So I was thinking about it. I feel like so often I'm trying to figure out the best path forward. In reality, sometimes there's almost no way to know the best path forward. Yes, having lots of experience can help, and you get experience by doing stuff like this, but how can I know how long it's going to take to find that key? How can I know? I don't know. And if I spend forever trying to find it, and I don't find it, I'm going to be like, oh, I should have gone the other way. If I buy the new one, a new key, then I'll be like, man, if I just looked, I could have saved that money, which isn't that much. This is just an example that no matter which direction you go, you can always feel like the other direction may have been a little bit better. And in reality, you have no way of knowing. So you could just assume that there is no easy direction. Either way is going to be hard or have difficulties. And you just pick one and go with it. After the fact, you might know, but at the time you may not. And it's almost impossible to know. So anyway, let's get this lug nut off. Go to sledgehammer. See how this goes. I may not have one big enough. Well, that stinks. Let's see what I got in here. Maybe one of these SAEs will fit. Again, it's like whatever path you take, you don't know what interruptions and unforeseen difficulties arise. If I hadn't done this, I wouldn't have known that I didn't have the right size socket, and I would have always thought, man, it'd be so quick and easy to do that. Now I actually try it and I find a difficulty I didn't know I had, and that's gonna happen no matter which way you go, or it can happen. I'm gonna see if I can find another socket that'll actually fit. I got these ones. Yeah, these are 6 points, so I don't really want to use those. The guy in the video used the 12 points. That is definitely going on. Excited about that. I think I got it on pretty much all the way. See what the old breaker bar can do. Voila! It is off just like that. I just have to get this silly thing back out of my socket. And I was able to use the sockets I don't care about as much. I like that. So that came off pretty easy, honestly. So potentially I don't have to hammer it on so far next time. I'm gonna go ahead and throw that one on there. So I'm gonna do the other front wheel as well, assuming I can get this off. How do you get this thing out? That's the last part of this process that we need to establish. So I got some vice grips on here. I found a bolt that fits in there. I just need to hammer it against something. I think it's moved. Almost. We got it. That worked really well. I don't think I need to go on quite so far next time though. Let's get one more off. Prove this process. I didn't have to hammer on quite as far as the first one, but I still had to go quite a ways for it to bite. There it comes! As annoying as this was, having to deal with that, what it kind of did is just showed me how annoying that can be if you lose your key, which is a problem that has now been resolved. If I had not misplaced my key, it's entirely possible I would have not done this and it would have been an annoyance always trying to find my key, or it would have been a really big annoyance if I'd ever had to replace my tire along the side of the road. That would have been really bad if that happened and I couldn't find my key. So it just brought this to the forefront and we've resolved it hopefully once for all, and hopefully the wheels never get stolen. But wouldn't it be funny if that key shows up now that we've taken care of this? All right, so the reason that the whole lug nut issue came up was because I was trying to get the wheels balanced at Discount Tire. But here's the funny thing. In swapping out the keyed lug nuts for regular lug nuts, I also rechecked the torque on my front right wheel, which is the one I removed. And my vibration is actually a little bit better. I think it's still there somewhat, but it's not as bad. So it's possible that the front right wheel just needed to be retorqued after being reinstalled. So I think I've heard that you're supposed to retorque the lug nuts on aluminum wheels a little while after they've been installed. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if people do that, but we may have solved the vibration problem somewhat. I still think it might be a little bit there, but it definitely feels better to me. So we're not gonna get the wheels balanced yet. We're just gonna keep driving it for a while and see how that goes. So I'll mark that off the list for now. So this thing needs new windshield wipers. Windshield wipers are skipping a little bit. I've got some replacements back there. Let's see if we can get those swapped over real quick. How do these come off? I think I'm going to time lapse this because I can't show you how to do something I don't know how to do. Well, after breaking apart one of the old wipers, now I know how the device works. And it's really simple, like it usually is on wipers. I probably should have just watched a video, but here it is, in case anyone's trying to swap out Bosch wiper blades. What I'm used to is a release tab underneath here. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little tab under there. On these, apparently you squeeze here. Oh yeah, see, you do that and that pivots up. Then you can flip it around and slide it off, like so. And the new one goes into, locks in place. Yeah, it clicks. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Not that hard. All right, so we've been making great headway on this minivan. I've actually been driving it around a little bit now, but there's something I really want to fix on here, and this shouldn't be that complicated, but we'll find out. So the engines in the Odyssey EXLs and the Tourings, it deactivates half the cylinders, which makes it run a little bit rougher. And to counteract that, Honda has these active engine mounts, which kind of, I guess, I don't know how they work exactly, but they try to counteract that excess vibration to keep the ride smooth. And on this van, the wire to the back active engine mount is broken. Now, a lot of people like to deactivate the VCM, I believe it's called, that turns off part of your cylinders. I'm not doing that yet. I may do that down the road, but I think I'm just going to fix this for now and see how it goes. I don't mind getting better fuel economy, but I do understand there could be some side effects. Most of those side effects seem to be short-term, like fouling spark plugs because you're getting excess oil in the engine, but they can be worked past and they're not like doing permanent damage to the engine. I think the worst thing might be the catalytic converters getting fouled up, because those can be kind of expensive to replace. However, I live in a state that does not do testing on the vehicles, so I could probably work around that if I had to. That wouldn't necessarily be ideal, but that's probably the worst case scenario that we're looking at here. So, with no further ado, let's get down there and see if we can put a new plug on the end of that wire. I could not find this exact plug listed on Rock Auto, but I took a picture of it and I found what looks like an identical one. Hopefully I'm correct. We'll find out here shortly. The first thing I need to do is get under the vehicle and make sure this actually plugs into the plug before I splice it into the wiring. So here's the plug, and hopefully, I think this is the right side up. Hopefully this notch here is aligned in the right spot and everything else matches, and it works. I just found a connector pigtail that looked like it would fit. Hopefully it does. Let's go find out. I don't know if you can see that. That is where the plug should go. Right in there. All right, perfect. That plug looks like it will fit. Means I now need to find the wires to splice into, which I believe are right here. There they are. This shouldn't be that hard. I should have pushed the cardboard further under here. I forget how far back it is here. I thought I pushed it far enough back. I'm actually a little concerned I'm damaging the insulation on the wires with the heat shrink. I'm getting them too hot, but It is what it is. I'm just gonna wrap with electrical tape next, and then try to get it tucked out of the way. I don't know. You can see what I mean. It's getting shiny there. So we get these wires kind of out of the way, and we should be good to go. Hopefully that fixes the issue, and we'll be able to move on. All right, so we got the van to a state where it's drivable and usable. Sorry for the sore throat today, but it's just the way it is. But there's still some things we'd like to get wrapped up and fixed on here, one of which is this sliding door, which from what I'm told has a broken bracket of some sort. It sounds like it fell off in the past and it was probably a pain to put on, and then they just kind of stopped using that door. So I'm curious to see how well this door will work, or if it will at all. I know it works a little bit because I did it by accident and I stopped it about here and then closed it back and it worked fine. As I try to open this door, it's possible it'll fall off again, which I really hope it doesn't, but I also need to see what exactly is broken so I can fix it. So here goes nothing. Oh, well, there's a pin down there. Interesting. It does have some slop in it. I'm gonna go try opening the other door and see how much slop it has at this point. Yep, that hinge definitely has slop in it. So far, I haven't identified any broken brackets on the other door. Let's go back over there. There's the stop. It's almost all the way open. The track looks correct. It's on the wire. There's a lot of slop in the door. I think it's because one of the rollers is missing like its outer rubber part and it's just a metal peg. You can see that peg? That's where there should be a rubber roller on there, but there's not. On that peg sticking up in that bracket. On the other side here, you can see there is a rubber roller on that. I'm not seeing anything so far that would make me think the door is going to come off. Let's try to open it the rest of the way, see what happens here. Definitely looks like the roller needs to be replaced. Okay, it didn't fall off. I wonder if it's just the lack of that roller that made it so sloppy that it did fall out in just the right situation, that the door may have come out. The door is not falling off. I'm going to try to close it now, and maybe I'll help it just a little bit. It worked. Okay. I'm so happy the door didn't fall off. I was worried about that. And the motor and everything seemed to function, so that's good. So I looked at it a little closer and I did notice I'm missing a plastic bracket. Let me show you that little white plastic thing there. It kind of guides the wire. It's at the end of the track. And on this side here, I don't have one. That wire is just in there, kind of free hanging. Also, one other thing I've noticed, and I may look into this, the good door, the driver's side door, the power door lock doesn't always come up. So if the van has been locked and you unlock it and then try to use the door, it doesn't work because the door is still locked and you have to like manually lift the door lock. So I might need to replace the power door lock motor on the driver's side sliding door, or lubricate it or something. I think I need to order a roller rebuild kit, and maybe when I have it apart, I'll see if there's something else going on in there. I'm not the expert on replacing the roller, so if you want a video on how to do that, I suggest finding another one out there. I think there's quite a few. I think I watched one from Eric, the car guy. It was a few years old, but these vans are pretty old. In the meanwhile, the door has gotten jammed, so it won't even open now, which makes it hard to replace the rollers. Ah, what's it hanging up on? I don't know if the rollers are jammed in there or what. I was able to get the door freed up. It turns out the roller was just binding so badly in the track that when I try to move it, just goes gook and binds itself that way and goes that way, boop, binds itself that way. So it kind of can rock a whole bunch in there. If I want to open the door, like that doesn't work very well, but if I just grab it here, then I can slide it. I think I'm going to take off the inner door panel now that I have opportunity to, just in case we have further issues and I wish it was off. So I'm going to take off the inner door panel and then I'm going to move forward with trying to do the roller replacement. And roller replacement basically involves taking off this little screw right here. I don't know if you can see that. With that screw there, Phillips. Then I need to mark my bolt positions over here. I'll mark this bracket position. Unbolt this bracket so I get that off. But I need to support the door as well. So I'll use a floor jack to support the door. Then unbolt it. And then there's a cable, one on each side of that bracket, one going backwards, one going forwards. So it's like a closed loop system, so to speak, almost. And then I just hopefully can finagle it. Yeah, so this cover comes off. I think that Phillips screw gets that cover off. I'm not an expert on this. Yeah, probably have to watch the video again, or parts of it. In a nutshell, that's what's going on. And then I'm gonna try to see if there's enough slack in the cables that I can get them out of the other side of this bracket, then put the new one on. Well, then I would take apart the bracket, because only half of the bracket comes with the new part, the half with the rollers. Then put it back together, then try to hook it on the cables, then bolt it back to the door. I think you get the picture. Let me see if I can find the bracket to show you. New bracket. I got a Shimar brand one off of Rock Auto. So this part of the bracket, it goes towards the door is there, but then, I'm sorry, it goes towards the van is there, but the part that hinges on the door has to be reused. And these right here are kind of the little things that the cables fit in. You kind of have to spin around, get them through that slot there, and then they come that way and they won't come out. So hopefully there's enough slack for that. But yeah, that looks much better, these new rollers. The old one is basically just those center metal posts now. Of course, I forgot one of the steps of getting that cover off the side here was to remove the taillight, and you got to be careful of that. I know I'm giving instructions when I said I'm not really, but like in Eric the Car Guy's video, he broke off this plastic tab off the back because he was pulling on that, because there's not much room to pull in here. So I used one of these plastic putty knives to try to get in around on the back side here to pop the light forward off of this little spot there where it's held on by this little doohickey. I took my Sharpie and marked it like you recommended around there, and my goodness, you can really see how bad that binds in there. But I also just noticed that one of these 3 bolts is missing. That one right there. Hopefully it's not broken off. Hopefully we can find a bolt to put in there. That is something of note. I don't think it's making a huge difference. I don't think it's really affecting things, but anyway, I just wanted to give you an update. I'm gonna pull that bracket off there now and see if I can swap the bad half with the new good half. Well, that was relatively easy to get this out. They do suggest putting some masking tape or something on here to protect the paint, but this paint's so dinged up right here. I didn't, but you might want to. Anyhow, these cables were so loose, I was able to pull them out quite a ways from the van. Hopefully that's not an issue. We may have to replace those at some point. I think the cable is still intact. I think it's just the outer sheath that's a little nicked up. Let me show you these rollers. This is bad. I knew it was bad, but here, let you judge that. Those pegs are even worn down and bent out a little bit. These things are beat. Now at this point I just need to get this part of the bracket off and put it over here on this one. This should just go right up in here. Yep. This thing is so loose. So that's one way you can test your doors, to grab it here and try to pull it in and out and see how tight the rollers are. The other door could probably stand to have this replaced as well, but it's not near this bad. Oh, and by the way, I realized there's actually only 2 bolts supposed to be there to hold this. There's not even a 3rd hole. So we're good. Got it. I've been kind of using this damaged grease carton for putting grease on things. It moves real easy. All right, now I just need to put this C-clip back on without losing it. Got it. All right, got it back together. Moves really easy. That's good. I just need to put this thing back in there. You gotta pop the cable through the open end on these brackets. It's got this little barrel on here. You go in like that. Get it all the way in there. Then turn it. Now it stays in. Now I need to do the other one. I think we got it. All right. Now I just need to get it up in here. Make sure those rollers are still okay. Okay. Put it up in there. And now I just need to roll it back this way to where it lines up. So now we should be able to drop this and the door should stay on. There we go. All right, we're ready for the moment of truth to see if the door works. Hello, door. Wake up. Why is the door asleep? Okay, at the very least, the other door works, so this one, it should work. It's not doing anything. I may need to investigate why the door light is on the dash. Maybe my fuse blew on that side. It's a little annoying. This door was just not rolling well. I was able to manually kind of get it pushed around somewhat. I went ahead and took the roller back off because I'm trying to figure out what on earth is going on here. I think what's happening is that these rollers are loose and they turn easily like this, but when they're in there, I think they're still binding. I think I needed some lubricant on the rollers. I don't know why. I just think that's what needs to happen. So I didn't have anything that I thought would work well. I probably want a graphite or silicone. So I ran to Walmart and I was able to get some PB silicone. So PB blaster silicone. So I'm gonna try that. Also, I found out that having that light on the dash about the power sliding door, that can be reset by pulling a certain fuse out. And that's probably why the motor's not functioning, because the car is like, oh, there's a problem here. Don't do anything. It tells the motor, it shuts down all those systems or something. So I'm gonna try to get that thing lubed up, get back on, make sure I can actually move it by hand better now, and then pull the fuse and see if the power stuff and everything will work. I was comparing this door to the far side door. It's got slop back and forth like that. But it rocks all the way over and then rolls, and then it rocks the other way and rolls. This door that I was working on, it would rock but not roll, kind of like before I put the new bracket on. So it definitely needed to be replaced, but we'll see. We'll see what some lubrication does here. It's a little better. One of the rollers is sliding instead of rolling. I'm gonna put some more lubricant in there just to let it all work, because we probably had a little bit of spray on the outside of the roller, so it's not grabbing as much, it's just sliding, which honestly, it's not the end of the world if that happens. See how this goes now. Not sure what the noise is coming from. Well, the door works now, so I think we are on to what the issue was a lack of lubricant in those rollers. I'm going to go ahead and reset the fuse and see if the power door will now work as well. I pulled out the fuse. It's number 7 on the driver's side fuse panel. For some reason I was thinking passenger side, since this is a passenger side door, but the fuse is labeled something like backup. It's not labeled something related to the doors, but got the light out on the dash, so now we are ready to try and see if the power door will work now. I left the window open and I can't close it because I took out my inner door panel, which had the switch for it. So the door is not going to cycle all the way right now, but we should be able to see if it'll cycle what it will do with the window down. So let's go. Usually if there's an issue, it'll only work twice, and then the third time it'll trip the light again. So we'll see how it goes. That's pretty good. Looked like it closed all the way. Yes, that's the third time. I'll use the outside door handle this time. There she goes. Yes! All right. Not only is it working, the door is getting quieter. It seems quieter. So, victory. The door is working now. Now let's get everything put back together. Whew. That's a load. A load off my mind. I really wanted this door to work, so I need to put it all back together now. So we got everything back together on the inside of this door, and I think I'm gonna need to order a new door lock actuator. But the door still is having some issues, so I this morning lubricated it in a method that I saw recommended online for the door, the rear I guess closer latch, I don't know what you call it. Right here on this section here. I sprayed some lube in here, but then you can apparently pull out these 3 bolts one at a time and spray some lube in there. And I did, and put it back together. And it seems to be working well now. I've not been able to get it to fault out, so that's a good sign. Hopefully the sliding door issues are behind us, but we'll just have to keep an eye on it. We kind of know how to deal with it now, and I'm not worried about the door falling off, so that is good. Alright, so I wasn't really planning on showing this, but I was going to change out the cabin air filter on here, and I started working on it, and it is so incredibly dirty. I had to show you. First of all, you got to swing down the glove box, which you have to finagle or get the stop out. But yeah, it comes out of there. It just slides out of there like a cassette tape or whatever. And I had trouble pulling it out because there was a big chunk on top of it. Yeah, so my this is incredible. We had a dirt dauber nest right here, and look how much stuff is in here. That may help with some airflow in the van. All right, it has been months since I was out here in the field with this Honda Odyssey, but today I'm going to bring you an update and the resolution to this video. This may just be the part 1 of a 2-part series or something, but this van has been very functional. We've been using it for a while, so I figured it was time to go ahead and wrap up this video. So when we got this van, we had a list of issues. I still have the paper, it's all wrinkled up. Let's go down through this list real quick. The grinding noise. The grinding noise turned out to just be the power steering pump. The O-rings on the power steering pump that were leaking slightly, so it was running low on fluid. That created that noise. That was a really cheap fix, easy to do. The electrical drain, we spent a long time trying to identify and find, and we never really found anything. We ended up putting a brand new battery into the van, and it's been great ever since. The air conditioning system. We tried to charge it up ourselves and found that the low pressure port was leaking after trying to charge it. It may have been leaking before, I'm not sure. Rather than purchase a tool for, I can't remember, like $180 or something, maybe 160, 70, 80, something like that dollars, that we could use to replace that valve ourselves with pressure still in the system. I elected to hire someone else to do that, so I took it into a shop, paid them $130 to remove the Freon, replace the high pressure and low pressure valves, and recharge the system. It's not super duper cold, but it still works fairly well. It's possible some of the components are getting a little bit old. Next on the list, the power sliding doors. So one of these doors on the right, the door on the right hand side, it had an issue where it had fallen off track in the past. I took it apart and it turned out it was just the rollers were really worn out. I replaced that. That was fairly straightforward. But we're still having some issues on that door. The power system will work for quite a while, and then it'll kind of fault out. And I think it's because of the closing motor having a little trouble pulling it shut. So the closing motor, I've lubricated it once or twice. I probably need to do that again, see if I can get it to work well. I say closing motor. It's like the latch closing mechanism. It's somewhere right in there. That is still a little bit of an open-ended issue. Right now, I haven't pull the fuse out to reset it, and so right now we're using the doors manually, which works, but ideally we'll get the power system working more permanently in the future. Both doors work in the sense that we're not afraid of them falling off track, which is important. Then we had the timing belt on here. That was a good thing to do just as like a preventative maintenance, because it had been a while since the timing belt was previously replaced, and that took probably the most time out of anything on here because I ran into an issue on there where one of the bolts was starting to strip out. I ended up putting a longer bolt in there. I didn't have as much thread engagement as I really wanted to. I did not torque it down as far, but for the placement of the bolt, I did not think that would really be an issue. We've been running it the way it is. We have not had any leaks from the water pump, and if that bolt wasn't tight enough, potentially we could have a leak in the water pump, but we haven't had any issues there. We've run it probably a couple thousand miles since then. We'll just keep an eye on that. I don't think it's going to be a problem. If I still have this van by the time that we do the next timing belt replacement, I will probably take the opportunity to drill out that hole and re-tap it at a larger size when the water pump is off. I did not find this issue until I'd already installed the new water pump, and I did not want to uninstall it because I'd used a little bit of sealant around it. I didn't want to have to clean all that up. I wanted to leave it on there. Last of all on this list, exterior general maintenance. We've done almost nothing to the exterior. I think I washed it once. We may do some of that, but at the same time, we don't want to go overboard, but we don't want the van to stick out like a sore thumb, which I don't really think it does right now. So we may do some simple fixes down the road. And the general maintenance portion, we flushed the coolant as a part of the timing belt change. We did an oil and filter change on here, and we did a power steering flush as well. I also want to do a transmission fluid change and a brake fluid change. I have not done either of those, but the brake system has been working perfectly fine. The transmission, I have the filter for it, not the fluid. And hopefully I get around to that one of these days. Also, we purchased spark plugs for it and we did not install them yet. That may help with my fuel economy, which has been lower than I was hoping for, expecting. That is what it is. It's a 20-year-old van. Sometimes we get over 20 miles per gallon. A lot of times most of the times it's less than that when we're just driving around town. Last tank I think was like 15 point something, maybe a little under 16. I would prefer to see high teens or right around 20. We'll see, maybe replacing spark plugs will help with that. So, the moment you've been waiting for, this is our grand list of costs. And yeah, we spent $1,020 thereabouts on fixing everything on here. That includes some miscellaneous costs for like the lubricants for the door, the $5 for a lug nut. The biggest expense on here was $275 for the timing belt, power steering O-ring, air intake hose, trans filter, and spark plugs. Spark plugs was the next time. But I bought all this stuff at one time. The timing belt kit itself was like $189, something like that. Then we spent quite a bit on fluids, $128 on fluids. The battery is expensive and really simple, but it's like $152. And the AC recharge at $130. One thing I did not mention is that we also did a wheel and tire rebalance at Discount Tire. That was $60. And that is on this list. I just hadn't really talked about it yet. That was because we had a vibration at higher speeds. And after doing that wheel and tire balance, it seems to have gone away. So that problem was resolved. So all in all, we are really happy with this van. The interior needs to be cleaned again. We vacuumed it out once, but we need to vacuum it out again. We've been using this van, our family has. And it's been really nice to have the extra space. The condition of the interior itself is still really good. That Honda quality, it's just amazing. 20 years old and the dashboard, it still looks great. A lot of the leather upholstery is still pretty nice. The carpets don't really have holes in them, they're just dirty. It's like the plastics and stuff that they used on these vans, it lasts a long time. So was it worth it? So you can pick up a van like this for probably $1,500 to $2,500. I put $1,000 of parts into it plus my sweat equity, and this van will probably be good for about another 100,000 miles, maybe more. I think it was definitely worth it in our case. We knew the previous owners, and this van was fairly low mileage compared to other vans. It only had 186,000 miles on there when we purchased it, well, just under 187. So I think this van has a ton of life left, and honestly, why would I want to spend more for something newer just for the sake of it being newer? This van is going to serve us just fine for a long time, and we have less investment into it. And if it gets beat up or dinged up, we don't really have to worry about it. If I need to fix something, I know a lot about the van. It's not that hard to work on. I just think we're set up for the future in a good way. So as always, thank you so much for tuning into Garage Story, and let me know your thoughts. Would you buy an old van like this? Is it worth it to you? I think newer cars are kind of a ripoff, but what are your thoughts? Would you rather a newer car? Would you rather buy something to work on or buy something old that already has had the work done, which probably would have cost 2 or 3 times more than what I spent because I did the work myself? You guys comment below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't be afraid to get out there and break a wrench, and stay safe, spend time with your family, and we'll catch you on the next one.